Okay, hello and welcome to today's video. So, just recently Square Enix announced an Octopath Traveler prequel for mobile devices, Android and Apple. And I know my channel's normally a Zelda one, but I played Octopath Traveler, and oh boy, I really liked that game. So I figured I'd do a video analysing the trailer that they released for it, to try and figure out if we can get some insight into the game before it's released. Okay, so let's get right into this then. So, first off, a disclaimer. I have used Google Translate throughout the video to translate the Japanese, so it won't be the best accuracy possible, but it's decent, I guess. Anyway, into the trailer firstly. So, the first part of text here translates to something along the lines of, "Do you want a journey?" Nothing much really. For these next parts, I've spent quite a while in Octopath myself searching, but I couldn't actually find any of these locations, so they're practically guaranteed to be new locations. Now, in this first location, there's nothing interesting here really, but the character is. The character looks similar to Alfin, so could possibly be a predecessor to him. The character doesn't directly look like Graham Crossford, so I don't think it's Graham Crossford, maybe a younger version of Alfin, maybe just one completely new. If it is Graham, it could be Graham Crossford, however, I have reason to believe not, which I'll get into later. The next area obviously looks to be in the Clifflands, maybe near Boulderfall. The character here instantly stands out to me as looking like Harnett, except she's wearing armour. Could possibly be her mother. We don't know anything of her parents in Octopath. I mean, we know her parents passed away, so maybe that's it. It could also just be someone completely new, really. This next location here is also pretty unremarkable. The character looks pretty similar to Ophelia, wearing similar clothing, so maybe also a priest of the Sacred Flame. We know Ophelia was orphaned as a result of a war, so maybe that's it. Her mother could have been a priest that died in the war, maybe that's her, don't really know. Interesting though. The character could also be completely new, but still a priest of the Sacred Flame, and it'd be nice to get another story in relation to the Sacred Flame really, I guess. This next location is a bit more interesting than the previous ones, but not structurally. You can see what looks to be a bull of some sort in the back. Now, you do get bull-like enemies in Octopath, but not just stood there, like only during the battles really, so maybe there's some event with a bull there. Bullfighting maybe? That'd be interesting to see in Octopath. And to push, the character here could be best related to Tressa, I guess. However, I don't really see the resemblance myself, plus we've already seen Tressa's mother, who looks completely different. I think it's better just not to relate this character to anyone we know, to be honest. The text here says something along the lines of Octopath Traveler, series latest. For this next location, this is a completely new place we've never seen before. It looks similar to Atlasdom or Noble Court, if you ask me. Could have possibly been an earlier version of Atlasdom, as we know it's been a pretty long-lasting kingdom. It could also be Noble Court in the past, near Noble Court, as we know Noble Court has several noble houses, and this has like 3 different flags on it, which could be flags for different houses, I guess. The character here is wearing clothing very similar to Cyrus, although he doesn't actually look similar to Cyrus as a person. I'm thinking he's not related to Cyrus, but another scholar. Due to wearing the similar clothing, he could be from the Royal Academy of Atlasdom. This next location is also completely new. It looks to be our first look at a town of sorts in the game. There are people that look like bandits, and there's a guy lying on the floor, possibly dead. So maybe the bandits have taken over the town. Due to being safe and not under attack from the bandits, the player could be working with them. The player is also wearing the colour purple, which is very similar to Therion. So maybe this is a thief character, and she's working with these thieves, maybe. I mean, we know nothing of Therion's family from Octopath, literally nothing, so could easily be related to him, could easily not be, we don't really know to be honest. But I'm pretty sure she's a thief. This next location is really interesting. We see a man who I honestly cannot relate to anyone walking through a town. The area is very snowy and could remind one of Flamesgrace, however it isn't Flamesgrace, but the main thing here is these banners with this icon on them. It looks to be some kind of light, maybe an order of a god or something. It could just be the Order of the Sacred Flame, however I have a big reason not to think so. And I will be getting into this later because this is one of the big points of this analysis video and it's actually quite important if you ask me. So keep watching and you'll see. Next we see a girl that looks a lot more alike to Tressa than the one from earlier. She's in a cave and approaching an Etin enemy. Now, noting that you actually see the Etin enemy here, makes me want to think that the enemies here, there's chance of them just not being random encounters. Well, there probably are random encounters, but also you actually see the enemies stood there. If this case is true, it means the bull from earlier might not be bullfighting, it might be a bull enemy just stood there. I mean, it could be the case, because you do see that when she approaches this Etin, we go into a fight scene. And this is where we get to see the new battle interface. So, the first major thing to note is that you get 8 characters at once. Not 4, but 8. I'll go into analysing all the characters themselves in a moment, but first let's look at the fighting interface. So, each character gets a little box. Each box shows the information we're normally used to, the boost points, HP, SP, but they just look a little bit nicer, I guess. We also get a picture of each character's weapon type beside them. Now this will get important in a moment. Now the enemy here translates to Fierce Etin, and we get to see the enemy's level now too. The rest of it looks practically like normal. The text overlaying this footage in the bottom labels this as a formation battle, although that could just be Google translating badly, but I guess all the 8 characters are in some kind of formation. The diamond-shaped red icon says target on it. I'm not sure what this is for, but maybe you tap on it and then you tap on the enemy you want to be attacking. The bar at the top, showing turns, is missing here, not there. However, I have reason to believe that turns will still be in this, because there's now the big attack button, and when you press it, 3 characters will go to attack the Etin. However, then in the next scene, 4 characters attack the enemy here. I think it was a snow bear. So, different numbers of characters attacking before the enemy does suggests that there is some kind of turn mechanic. Maybe they've hidden the bar in the main game, maybe they've only hidden it for a trailer. Who knows? Overall, this footage leaves me thinking that you get to assign an attack per character at the start, and then you boost it however much you want during the battle. I mean, like, we see some characters with like a flame icon next to their name, or just icons that aren't actually weapons, and I think this really emphasises it. Like, say with one character, you could pick a fire spell to be their attack, and another you could pick a spear, and then they do that attack during the battle. And I think that this makes sense considering you've got 8 characters instead of 4, so it sort of makes up for the fact you only get 1 attack per character per battle. Now, here we get our first look at what seems to be a boss. Translating his name gives Thieves Messara, suggesting he has some relation to thieves, obviously, maybe a leader. We see several status effects on the player here too. We see 3 claw marks above the staff-wielding cleric character. They cause a red circle above her head, but I can't really tell what it causes. There's also a swapping icon of sorts, next to both of the characters 3 rows down. This appears to swap the order that they attack in for 1 turn. There's also a 4 times icon that appears to be the boost points in use by said character, I believe. Now here we actually get to see the boost system. So when the attack button is pressed on, it brings up all the characters that are going to attack, and you can tap on those characters to change the number of boosts that they use during their attacks, which is quite interesting. You can translate with Japanese text here. I translated a bit of it, and it just translates to like weapon names and the word attack or something like that, so I don't translate it all. Now that's it for fighting here, so let's look at the characters themselves. Firstly, there appear to be more than 8 characters total. I can't really comment on much of the characters other than 2 things. For starters, this one guy here resembles Graham Crossford a lot, so maybe we will get Graham Crossford's story then. Although I don't know, because his story does have a rather sad ending, I guess. Mainly with him turning into Red Eye. So I don't know how that would work in a game, unless they're going for bad endings here, but still it looks a lot like him. Maybe someone related, I'm not sure. I mean, we know Graham Crossford is in a long line of the people that sealed away Galdera ages ago, so maybe this is back when Galderas was sealed away and this guy is Graham's ancestor, but then I don't think that happened because it placed too much emphasis on one character. I think maybe it's just some point in the past, but not that far back. Now secondly, these 2 girls here both look like dancers. So I think this means we're getting back secondary jobs. Either that, or it means that you can get lots of different characters and just customize them. In which case, I doubt though, because it would remove story aspects. The next scene here shows what looks to be a woman of nobility or royalty talking with some others who look to be like commoners, I guess. It labels her as a millionaire, and she's saying, "I cannot compensate my money with an apology." I can't really tell whether this means she's apologising to them, or saying that their apology to her isn't enough. I mean, she does hit one of them with like a rag or something, so I guess it means their apology to her is not enough and it doesn't compensate for her money. Something like that. Either way, it's interesting and it 100% confirms new story. And it makes her scene not that nice. The next scene gets to be really interesting. So, a nobleman or leader or someone walks out in front of some soldiers here. The banners here are exactly the same as in that snowy region from before, which is important. Now, the man's name roughly translates to Warlord, and he's saying to the soldiers, "What does the church do for you?" Now, this seems like he's leading some sort of uprising or war against the Church of the Sacred Flame, I guess. This could pose pretty interesting for a story, but I'll get back into that at the end of this analysis because I've got a theory on it that I want to share. But anyway, the next scene here is on a stage of sorts. There's a man called Playwright August, I think that's how it translated, and he throws his arms in there and says, "Marvellous!" And he's stood next to a presumably dead body, whether acting or not I don't know. It reminds me of Simeon in his parts in Octopath with obsidians, so maybe this guy's related to obsidians? Maybe not. Once again, it depends how far back this prequel goes. Now, after this, we can make out vaguely some more scenes. I can't translate them due to being low quality because they're zoomed out, but can make out what's in them. So, one is taking place in a room filled with lots of golden treasure. That looks interesting. Another is taking place in what looks to be a town centre, so nice. Also not a town from Octopath, so once again, new locations. Another is taking place in what looks to be a garden of sorts, so probably in some, like, noble person's back garden or house or whatever, so that'll be interesting to explore, I guess. The next one's in a purple-themed cathedral-like structure, and this is really interesting, because it's got the same icon from earlier with the Warlord. And this goes into my theory I said I'd get into. And then you can only just notice one more, with what looks to be a nobleman talking to someone in prison, I guess. It's hard to make out. Now, that is it for the trailer. My full analysis. However, I'll get into a theory that I just mentioned earlier. So, it's about this Warlord guy. So, the scene right here at the end was very purple themed. Purple seems to be the colour of the accursed flame, or Galdera. So maybe this Warlord and his soldiers work under Matthias or LeBlanc, trying to bring down the Church of the Sacred Flame. Whether or not they do, it's clear that they're working against the Church, and him being named Warlord suggests a full-on war. As I mentioned earlier, we do know Ophelia was orphaned to the Church due to an unknown war. I'm thinking that it's likely that this is that said war, and it could explain why the Archbishop of the Church was willing to take her in, namely because it was a war against his church. I think it'd be interesting to see which side of this war our character is on, and it could make a pretty interesting story, a war of one faction against the Church of the Sacred Flame, said faction definitely showing evil connotations, possibly under Galdera's side, due to the purpley colour. Anyway, that is about that for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments on what I've said here. Did I miss anything? Is there any theories you've got on what we might be getting? Did I get any translations wrong with Google Translate that you might be willing to correct for me? Anything, feel free to chat in the comments. It would be interesting to see your lot. It would be interesting to see the opinions of you lot. Anyway, if you did enjoy this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already for, well, I normally do Zelda content, but I'll do videos or live streams of this whenever it comes out, so yeah, there you go. And as I said, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in another video or something or other. Bye.